It's mid-April on the peninsula, and although there is still ice in the bay, we are all eagerly awaiting spring's usual but unenthusiastic arrival. The time between winter and spring here is long and slow to change, but there is always a growing sense of hope and renewal as the weeks pass, beginning with the start of the shipping season, the leaving of the winter fleet, followed by the Coast Guard setting the summer buoys, orchard men pruning trees, and the growing chorus of spring peepers out among the cattails. And until I can get out and point my camera at something that isn't brown and lifeless, I thought it a good time to share with you, with the help of my orchard ladder, one of the most interesting and important discoveries I made since I started this Behind the Door project 4.5 years ago. I'm coming to you today from, as you might guess, the Sturgeon Bay Post Office. What I want to show you is a mural that was painted in 1940 from the mind and the hand of a Milwaukee artist by the name of Zingale. He lived from, I think he was born in 1908, died in 1999, and he was just 32 years old when he completed this mural during the Great Depression. Now, Zingale had a real talent for creating large-scale realist murals in public buildings. And it kept him employed as an artist, as it did for so many thousands of other artists through the Public Works Art Project and through the Works Progress Administration, or the WPA, during the Great Depression. Now, these two programs were just a small part of what President Franklin Delano Roosevelt called his New Deal at the time, which was a policy that was aimed at stabilizing the economy after the stock market crashed in 1929. And about 25% of all Americans were unemployed. So the New Deal helped to restore prosperity to many Americans by providing public works projects, and in this case, Public Works Art Project. Now, my own grandfather actually worked for the WPA in New Jersey after he immigrated here to America from Ireland in 1926, found himself out of work like so many others in 1929, and he and his family struggled for a long time. But then he worked on the Lincoln Tunnel project in New York, connecting New York and New Jersey, beginning in 1934. It connects like Weehawken, New Jersey to Midtown Manhattan. And he worked on that for several years. And because of that program, he was able to, feed and house and clothe himself and his wife and their 10 children, including my mother. Irish Catholic, what can I say? So as part of Roosevelt's New Deal policies, the government commissioned the creation of over 1,100 regional murals, like this one, on a nationwide basis in an effort to embellish the architecture along with, provide people income for their newly constructed kind of plain but practical cookie cutter style late modern U.S. post offices that were built during the Depression, which included this one here in Sturgeon Bay, completed in 1937. Now, there were 35 of these built in Wisconsin over that time period, and in the last 85 years, many of these buildings have been renovated or closed or sold or moved. Some were destroyed, but not here. Here we have a real treasure, a genuine masterpiece in American art and American history right here in Sturgeon Bay. Here, we're going to photograph it today. So the very first time I came into this post office, through those doors, the first thing I saw was this mural. And I was absolutely awestruck by it. And I knew immediately that it had to have been from the Depression era. And I suspected it might be a WPA project, but there was no signature on it and no date. And I must have been standing here for several minutes staring up at this thing, because the lady behind the counter eventually piped up. She said, "Are you okay? Can I help you?" So I asked her about it, and she just shook her head and she said, "No, it's always been there." She had no idea the importance of this masterpiece of American history, right here in Door County. So I have no idea how to start photographing this. It's so big. I mean, it's 6 feet high, 14 feet long, and I want to make sure I catch the detail. A ladder is going to help because I can get even with it. If I shoot from down here, what's going to happen is it's going to tip. It's going to look like this. The edges, I can straighten it out in Photoshop, but the edges are going to become distorted. And I don't want the edges distorted. I want a clean view all the way across. So I think what I might do is try with a 16 to 35 millimeter lens. And it's kind of dark in here. And those lights, oh my God, they're obnoxious. And that glass box of a lobby is kind of in the way too. So I'm just gonna have to work around that. But those LED lights, these are turned off, but there's one in the other lobby that's on and it's reflecting off the water here. So it could be a bit of a problem. All right, 16 to 35 millimeter lens. I'm gonna open it up. Because it's flat, I'll keep the, this is a 1.2 lens, so I'll keep it at 1.2. I don't need any depth of field, but I need all the light I can get. And shoot it maybe ISO 100 or 200, as long as I can keep it above, because it's gonna be handheld. I'll keep it above probably 1/60th of a second, maybe 1/90th of a second. All right, give it a whirl. Okay, so this is an f2.8 lens, not a 1.2 lens. My 50 millimeter lens is a 1.2, so my mistake. But I think I can get a pretty decent shot here at ISO 400. There's just not enough light otherwise, based on my histogram here. It's dark, but I can bring that up in Lightroom. I won't lose any of that shade detail. So, all right, handheld. So Zingale completed this in egg tempera paint on a solid panel in his Milwaukee studio in 1940. I mentioned it's 6 feet by 14 feet, and it was transported as a single piece to Sturgeon Bay and installed shortly after it completed it. So there's also sketches and a watercolor draft of the final painting that rests in the archives of the Smithsonian, the American Art Museum in Washington, D.C. So, you may be asking, how did I get into this post office? Well, it took some doing. Many months of planning and trying to get permission, to enter a federal building. And thanks to the postmaster here, Darren, he spoke to his superiors, told them what my project was, and actually they were all for it. So the thing is I had to come here on a Saturday morning before the lobby opens. The lobby doesn't open until 10, about another 12 minutes. Well, I've got to get out of here because they're just about ready to open up the post office. It's funny to me. There are people who have lived in this town their entire lives, and never even knew this mural existed until I told them about it. When you think about it, who comes into a post office and looks up? You know, people come in, they get their business done, they get out right away. But me, I always look forward to my trips to the post office. Maybe if somebody would do something about these obnoxious lights and remove that damn lobby glass cage, people would have a better appreciation for it. Anyway, I was really eager to share this with you, and I've been working on this a long time. Getting permission, took some doing. Hi, oh, you're fine. I'm just getting ready to leave, so time to go. They're opening, time to go. The Fruits of Sturgeon Bay mural reveals through its many subtle layers a complex scene of 1930s Sturgeon Bay fishermen landing the day's lift. Their haul is of lake trout, identified by their speckled sides. At the time Zingale painted this mural, native lake trout were plentiful but in steady decline from industrial pollution, overfishing, and the introduction of non-native predators like lamprey eels and alewives, which precipitated changes in the food chain and in the ecology of the lake. By the late 1960s, lake trout had all but disappeared from the Great Lakes waterways. After more than 40 years of conservation efforts, there are signs of regional success as the lake trout are beginning to sustain in the wild and breed in these cold waters, slowly increasing their numbers year over year. Zingale celebrated their size and their abundance by making them greater in length than the standard fish boxes. Two styles of local commercial fish tugs are represented here: an open stern boat and one that's fully enclosed. The one sits amid calm waters, while one appears to be floating above the riled and silty waves, a testament to the bay's chameleon color and treacherous nature. A distant hillside orchard, the peninsula's other major commercial crop, clearly plays a supporting role here, but is optimistically displayed as the fruit trees are in full bloom. A half-dozen scavenging seagulls hover and heckle the fishers, with one gray gull flying away from the scene and off to the right, over the shoulder of the young boy, in an area of the mural that's darker than the rest, perhaps in recognition of the trade's diminishing prospects for the younger generation. The hard-working fishermen are all presented in similar drab clothing of browns and blues and gray, lending an air of dignified simplicity and plain lifestyle. Their hands are swollen and hardened from the relentless physical demands. Their lean, expressionless faces and sepulchre stares are symptoms manifested from long hours of back-breaking labor. Such noteworthy details suggest the artist knew these men, respected them, and admired them. He even personalized the work by incorporating the likeness of an acquaintance. Longtime Sturgeon Bay resident Barney Miller purported to be the figure standing farthest to the left. Odds are you have never heard of the muralist Santos Zingale. Prior to this, I never had. He may not have the name recognition and cachet of some of his contemporaries like Dorothea Lange or Mark Rothko or Jackson Pollock, but I'd put his work up to theirs any day, and I think it would hold its own. Recognizing its cultural importance during this era of American history, Fruits of Sturgeon Bay was restored to its original splendor by the world-renowned conservator Anton Regier in 1982. That played a significant role in the establishment of the Sturgeon Bay Post Office's entry on the National Register of Historic Places in October 2000. So if you're ever up this way, I would encourage you to make a point and come see this masterpiece. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Until next time then, thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you down the road.